There's a reason you feel everything so deeply. Why you walk into a room and sense tension before anyone speaks. Why you can hold someone's pain like it's your own, even when you wish you couldn't. You've always known you were different, more aware, more open, more alive. And yet, that sensitivity that once felt like a gift has slowly become the weight that exhausts you. You give, you listen, you care, until there's nothing left for you. But what if the very thing that makes you compassionate is also the thing quietly dismantling your strength? What if your light is burning itself out from within? Carl Jung called this the paradox of the empath, the soul that feels too much. He warned that without understanding the shadow, the unseen forces shaping our empathy, we lose ourselves inside other people's storms. This is the journey he mapped. 7 hidden mistakes that every empath makes. They look like kindness, but they drain your life. They sound like love, but they destroy your power. Tonight, you'll see each one. You'll understand why your heart feels heavy and how to turn that weight into strength. Because this isn't just about feeling deeply. It's about finally learning how to feel without losing yourself. This is Jung's warning map, and it may just change the way you love forever. If this speaks to something quiet inside you, if you've spent your life feeling too much, loving too deeply, and trying to understand what it all means, stay here with me. Subscribe, and let this be your corner of stillness, a place where philosophy meets the human heart, where Jung's wisdom helps you make peace with your own depth. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a journey back to yourself. One breath, one story, one quiet night at a time. Let your body rest. Let your thoughts drift. The night has a way of softening everything. The noise of the world, the edges of your thoughts, the weight you did not realize you were carrying. For a moment, it is just you and the quiet hum of your own being. You have always felt things deeply, haven't you? Even as a child, you could sense what others could not. The sadness behind a smile, the tension between 2 words that never left someone's lips, the way a room could feel heavy before a single thing was said. You didn't learn this. You were born with it. A strange, invisible sensitivity that made you aware of life in a way that was both beautiful and unbearable. Carl Jung once wrote, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." You have lived this truth without ever needing to read it. Every time you meet someone, something in you shifts. You take in their tone, their fears, their quiet longing. You mirror, you absorb, you hold. It is your greatest gift. This ability to feel, to connect, to understand the world not through logic, but through the subtle language of emotion. And yet, this gift has always felt like a secret you could never quite explain. People tell you that you are too sensitive, as if that was something to be ashamed of. But sensitivity is not weakness. It is perception sharpened to the point of pain. You are like a lantern glowing in the dark, able to see what others ignore. And sometimes, seeing so much makes it impossible to rest. There is a strange pride in this kind of awareness. The pride of being awake in a world that mostly sleeps. The pride of being able to comfort, to heal, to read the heart of another. You are the one people call when they are lost, the one who can listen without judgment, who can say just the right words at the right time. It makes you feel useful, even noble. But underneath that nobility, there's also fatigue, because every light draws darkness. Every open heart becomes a vessel, not just for love, but for pain. You sense that, don't you? The way people come to you and leave lighter while you leave heavier. The way their stories linger in your body long after the conversation has ended. You tell yourself you're fine, but you carry their echoes, their anxiety, their sorrow, their guilt, all tangled quietly with your own. Jung believed that within each person lies a duality, the self and its shadow. He wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Perhaps this is why your empathy feels like both a blessing and a burden. You are constantly awakening to others, to their pain, to the currents of emotion that flow unseen through the world. But awareness, when not balanced by boundary, becomes suffering. Still, you cannot help but love this part of yourself. This sensitivity makes you human in a way that feels rare, even sacred. You notice the details that others miss, the tremor in a friend's voice, the stillness in a stranger's eyes, the small signs of love that go unspoken. You see the invisible, and it binds you to life. When Jung spoke of the collective unconscious, he described it as a shared ocean of human experience, the place where every story, every pain, every joy connects. As an empath, you live close to that ocean. You're always standing at its shore, waves brushing your feet, whispering stories that aren't entirely yours. And though you cannot see where one wave ends and another begins, you feel them all, rising, breaking, dissolving into one another. There are nights when this awareness feels like peace, when you can sense the whole world breathing, and it makes you feel less alone. But there are other nights when it feels like drowning. The line between compassion and collapse blurs, and you begin to wonder if you are disappearing into everyone you've ever tried to save. And yet, here in this quiet space, as you listen, something in you begins to soften. You realize that your ability to feel is not a curse. It is simply misunderstood. The world taught you to build walls, to harden, to detach. But you were never meant to be hard. You were meant to sense, to move through life like water, adaptable, alive, capable of reflection and depth. Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Maybe tonight, you can begin to look inward, not to shut the world out, but to see where you end and it begins. The gift of feeling is not about absorbing everything. It is about noticing everything without losing yourself in it. Imagine for a moment that your empathy is a light within a lantern. It was never meant to illuminate the whole world, only to guide your path through the darkness. Let it glow gently, not fiercely. Let it warm you before it warms others. Breathe in. This is your light. Breathe out. This is your peace. Because sometimes light can burn the one who holds it, but only if they forget that even the brightest flame needs rest in the dark. And yet, for every light, there is a shadow. You can feel it even now, that quiet pull beneath the surface, the ache that comes after too much giving. The beauty of feeling deeply is that it opens your heart wide. But what no one tells you is that an open heart can also bleed quietly without anyone noticing. Your sensitivity, that radiant lantern, begins to flicker when it carries too much. You notice it in the smallest ways. The sudden heaviness in your chest after someone confides in you. The restlessness that lingers long after a conversation has ended. You tell yourself you're fine, but deep down, you know something inside you is fraying. Carl Jung once wrote, "The more consciousness gains in scope and clarity, the more it is exposed to the unconscious." You live in that tension between clarity and chaos, between empathy and exhaustion. The gift of feeling does not vanish, but it becomes heavier, as if every emotion you touch adds a little more weight to your soul. There comes a moment when you begin to notice the blur, where you end and where others begin. You feel someone's sadness and call it your own. You absorb their fear and carry it like a secret. The boundaries that once defined you start to dissolve, and you find yourself unsure whose life you are actually living. It is not dramatic, not sudden. It's subtle. It happens in the pauses between words, in the moments after you listen too deeply. Someone cries, and you cry too. Someone breaks, and you feel the fracture in your own bones. It's empathy, yes, but it's also erosion. You may tell yourself that this is love, that to help is to carry. But even love, Jung reminded, has a shadow. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. The empath, in their purest form, forgets this balance. You try to heal, to comfort, to hold everything together, until your compassion quietly becomes control, your selflessness becomes disappearance. Sometimes you realize it too late. You wake up one day and feel a strange emptiness, not sadness, not despair, just absence. You've poured so much of yourself into others that you no longer recognize what is yours. The laughter, the tears, the fatigue, they all belong to someone else. Jung would have called this identification the merging of the ego with the object. It's when the empath stops perceiving another's emotion and begins becoming it. In the relations between the ego and the unconscious, he wrote, "Identification is an alienation of the subject from himself in favor of an object." And that is exactly what happens here. A quiet alienation masked as kindness. You don't lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself piece by piece. Every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you listen when you have no strength left. Every time you make space for someone else's pain while leaving none for your own. Slowly, your empathy becomes a form of self-abandonment. There is a strange irony in it. You want to help people find peace, yet in doing so, you lose your own. You want to be a light in the dark, but the light begins to consume its own flame. Jung warned that when a conscious ego tries to carry what belongs to the collective, it collapses. You cannot contain the suffering of the world without burning out your own vessel. So you begin to notice the signs, the fatigue that coffee can't fix, the quiet resentment toward those you love, the sudden tears that come from nowhere. You start to crave silence, but even silence feels loud, filled with echoes of everyone you've ever tried to save. And yet, even in this exhaustion, there's something profoundly human. The fact that you care so deeply means you have not become numb. You still have the capacity to love. You still have the courage to feel. You just need to learn that your empathy is not meant to dissolve you. It's meant to connect you. The first step is awareness. To notice when your compassion turns into collapse. to recognize that you are not weak for needing rest, to see that you can be kind without disappearing. This awareness, Jung would say, is consciousness itself. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And so, tonight, perhaps you can begin to see the hidden weight for what it truly is. Not a punishment, but a signal. A call to return to yourself. A reminder that even light must have a shape, a boundary, a place to rest. Close your eyes for a moment. Picture that light within you, the same one that's been burning since the beginning. Notice how it flickers, not because it's weak, but because it's tired. It needs tending, not extinguishing. Take a slow breath in. This is where you begin again. You are still the lantern, but now you must learn to protect your flame, because sometimes light can burn the one who holds it, and learning not to let it, that is where true wisdom begins. You have felt it, haven't you? That invisible threshold, the place where feeling too much begins to hurt. You try to understand why the gift that once made you radiant now leaves you tired, scattered, uncertain of what is yours and what is not. And in that quiet confusion, you begin to realize you are lost in a landscape that few people even know exists. This is where another voice enters, a quiet, steady presence from another century. A man who spent his entire life walking through the same darkness you now feel. His name was Carl Gustav Jung. Jung was not just a psychologist, he was an explorer of the human soul, a cartographer of what lies beneath our awareness. Where most thinkers studied behavior, he studied being. Where others saw madness, he saw meaning. And through decades of self-examination, dreams and encounters with the unconscious, he began to draw what he called a map of the psyche, a way to navigate the hidden terrain within us all. He called it the structure of the soul, the ego, the shadow, the persona, and the path toward individuation, the process of becoming a whole. The ego, he said, is the center of consciousness, the I that says, I think, I feel, I am. It is the part of you that wakes each morning and faces the world, believing it knows who it is. But beneath it lies the shadow, everything you reject, deny, or cannot accept about yourself. The shadow is not evil, it is simply unacknowledged. As Jung wrote, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The shadow holds your anger, your envy, your desires, your pain, and yes, your unclaimed strength. It is the half of you that waits for integration, not destruction. Then there is the persona, the mask you wear to meet the world. It is your social face, the version of you shaped by expectation and belonging. Jung described it as a kind of mask designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. The persona helps you survive in society, but if you mistake it for your true self, you become trapped inside your own performance. And finally, there is the journey toward individuation, Jung's most profound idea. Individuation is the lifelong process of integrating these parts: the ego, the shadow, the persona, and the deeper, eternal center he called the self. It is not about perfection, but about balance. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For Jung, the soul was not chaos. It was a pattern, a living architecture of light and darkness, order and instinct. And he believed that those who can see both sides, who can hold the tension between them without collapsing are the ones who awaken to true consciousness. He spent years charting this internal world not as an academic exercise, but as survival. In his own life, Jung was not spared from the very forces he studied. During what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, he was overwhelmed by dreams, visions, and emotions that nearly broke him. In his memoir, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he confessed, "The years when I was pursuing my inner images were the most important in my life. In them, everything essential was decided. It all began then." He described being swamped, as if the flood of the unconscious had risen too high, threatening to consume him. And yet, from that near drowning, he emerged with a map, a way to move through the darkness without losing oneself. That map is what you are now beginning to walk, because every empath, every deeply feeling soul lives closer to this invisible terrain than most. You're not broken. You are simply standing in the territory Jung once charted, a place where emotion and unconscious power intertwine. Imagine the psyche as a vast, starlit sky. Each part of you, the ego, the shadow, the persona, the self, is like a constellation. You may not always see the connections, but they are there, waiting to guide you. Jung's map is not a doctrine, it is a compass. It does not tell you who to be, but shows you where you have lost yourself. He called this process making the unconscious conscious. It is the slow, gentle act of seeing what you have avoided, of naming what you once denied. It is not about fixing yourself. It is about understanding that you were never truly broken, only fragmented. For you, the empath, this understanding changes everything. It means your sensitivity is not just emotion, it is perception. You are attuned to the deeper movements of the psyche, not just in others, but in yourself. But to wield that gift without losing yourself, you must learn to navigate the map, to know where you are standing within it. The ego must stay anchored, or you drift into others' emotions. The shadow must be seen, or it will control you. The persona must be loosened, or you will suffocate inside who you think you should be. And the self, that quiet center beyond all opposites, must be remembered, for it is the only place your empathy can truly rest. So tonight, let this image stay with you. Jung, standing before his own darkness, sketching stars in the void. His warning map was never meant to frighten, but to guide, to remind you that the human soul, no matter how vast its night, is not without its constellations. Because if you can learn to see your inner world as he did, with courage, with honesty, with tenderness, then even your deepest feelings become light enough to carry. And from that light, a voice whispers softly, almost like a lullaby, "You were never lost. You were only learning the map of your own soul." When you begin to understand Jung's map, when the words ego, shadow, persona, and self start to take shape in your mind, something inside you stirs. It's not just curiosity, it's recognition. You realize you've walked these inner landscapes before, even without knowing the names. There are moments when you felt it, the pull of the unconscious, subtle at first, like a low hum beneath your thoughts. It begins as empathy, then grows into something heavier, almost tidal. You start to feel emotions that aren't entirely yours. You wake in the middle of the night and carry someone else's sadness in your chest, as if your heart has become an echo chamber for other people's pain. You think you are helping, but slowly you start to drown. Carl Jung knew that feeling intimately. He once described his own experience as being swamped by the unconscious. During his confrontation with his inner world, he wrote, "It was as though a flood of psychic images had been released, and I was caught and swept along." Imagine that. A man of extraordinary intellect, a scientist of the soul, suddenly overcome by forces within himself that refused to be controlled. Jung had spent years studying the psyche, its patterns, its symbols, its logic. But when the unconscious finally rose to meet him, it did not knock politely. It came like a storm. It showed him visions, dreams, and voices that blurred the line between sanity and revelation. In that chaos, he understood something essential. No one, not even the most self-aware, can meet the unconscious without humility. He later reflected, "The years when I was pursuing my inner images were the most important in my life. In them, everything essential was decided. Those were the years that shaped his wisdom, but they also brought him to the edge of his own dissolution. He had to learn to stay afloat, to look at the flood, not as punishment, but as invitation. And maybe in some quiet corner of your life, you felt the same. Perhaps there was a time when you felt emotions that made no sense, anxiety that arrived out of nowhere, grief that had no story, exhaustion that went beyond the body. You might have believed something was wrong with you, that you were too fragile or too dramatic. But what if what you were feeling wasn't all yours? Empaths often absorb the unconscious material of others without realizing it. You may have walked into someone's pain and mistaken it for your own. Jung would call this identification with the object, the dissolving of boundaries between self and other. And in that merger, you lose something precious, your sense of where you end and the world begins. It's not weakness, it's sensitivity. It's what happens when the walls of the psyche are too thin, when your inner sea is too open to the tides of others. But as Jung learned, even the sea needs a shore. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." To make the darkness conscious, that was his life's work. And that is your task now. Not to run from the flood, but to name it. Not to harden, but to learn how to breathe beneath the water. So take a moment. Breathe. Notice the sensations in your body. The thoughts that move through you might not all belong to you. The fear that lingers might not have started here. The sadness that feels ancient might have passed through countless hearts before finding you. This is the first whisper of fear, the realization that your empathy, without structure, can become a doorway for the world's pain. It's the moment when compassion turns into confusion, when feeling deeply begins to feel dangerous. But don't turn away. This is not the kind of fear that means stop. It's the kind that means listen. Jung once compared the psyche to a house. The upper floors represent our conscious mind, filled with light and order. But below, in the cellar, lies everything forgotten, repressed, or denied, the unconscious. Most people never descend those stairs. But you, as an empath, live closer to that basement than most. You can feel what moves beneath the floorboards. The danger isn't in knowing it's there. The danger is in pretending it isn't. To be swamped is to lose yourself in that basement, to open all the doors at once. But awareness slow and steady, becomes the key that lets in light without being consumed by it. So you start to practice noticing. You begin to ask gentle questions. Is this mine? What am I carrying that doesn't belong to me? What feelings are visiting and what feelings are home? You learn to treat your emotions not as commands, but as messages, each one a ripple from the deeper sea. And little by little, you realize that fear is not your enemy. It's a threshold guardian, the voice that warns you're crossing into deeper water. Jung would say that fear is often the sign of growth. It shows that the unconscious is near, that something in you is ready to be seen. You don't need to fight it. Just breathe with it. The flood won't destroy you. It's only asking you to remember that you can swim. Perhaps that's what Jung wanted for all of us. Not immunity from the unconscious, but intimacy with it. A friendship with the darkness, built on respect, not control. Because the unconscious is not chaos. It is the part of you that dreams, creates, intuits. The same part that gives your empathy its power. So tonight, as you sit in this quiet moment, remember Jung standing at the edge of his own mind, humbled but unbroken. He looked into the abyss, and instead of closing his eyes, he began to draw a map. That map was not meant for scholars or doctors. It was meant for souls like yours, those who feel too much, love too deeply, and lose themselves along the way. Take one last slow breath. Inhale, awareness. Exhale, release. And when you're ready, open the first page of your own map. Tonight, we will walk the map together. There's a moment after awareness, after you've learned about Jung's map and heard his warning about being swamped, when you start to notice how easily your inner world opens. It doesn't take much. A single conversation, a glance, a trembling tone in someone's voice. And suddenly, something shifts inside you. You don't just understand what they feel, you become it. You leave a conversation and realize you're carrying a sadness that isn't yours. You wake up anxious after spending time with someone who hides their fear behind a smile. You begin to feel emotions that seem to appear out of nowhere, heavy, thick, and strangely familiar, as though they've been borrowed from someone else's soul. This is the empath's quiet danger, the soft erosion of self that Jung called identification. He described it as an alienation of the subject from himself in favor of an object. In simple words, it means this: you start to mistake another person's inner life for your own. It happens slowly, gently, almost lovingly. You're talking to a friend who's grieving. You open your heart wide, wanting to comfort them. You listen. You nod. You absorb. But the next morning, their grief has settled into your chest like fog that won't lift. Their pain has found a home inside you, and now you carry it as though it were your own story. Empaths often confuse this absorption with compassion. You might tell yourself, "This is how I help," by feeling with them. But real empathy doesn't require merging. It requires presence. It requires standing near the fire without stepping into it. Yet for many who feel deeply, the line between the two is so faint, it almost disappears. You want to heal, so you open. You want to understand, so you surrender. But in that openness, you begin to dissolve. Carl Jung warned that this is not empathy. It is unconscious identification, the loss of boundaries that turns connection into contamination. He wrote, "The greatest danger in emotional relationships lies in unconscious identification, which always leads to mutual unconsciousness." mutual unconsciousness. That phrase itself feels heavy. It means that both people, the one in pain and the one who feels it for them, begin to lose clarity. No one is truly seeing anyone anymore. There's no ground, no distinction, only shared confusion. Have you ever felt that? The moment you can no longer tell if the sadness you feel belongs to you or to someone else. When your own energy feels blurred, as if painted over by another person's emotions. It is a quiet, suffocating experience, not dramatic, not loud, but consuming. It feels like water. At first it's gentle, soothing, cool against the skin. Then it rises slowly, reaching your shoulders, your neck. You try to breathe, but the air feels thick. The more you resist, the more you sink. You don't even remember stepping in. You only know you're surrounded now, floating in feelings you cannot name. And still, you tell yourself it's love. Because what else could make you so open, so willing to feel for another? But Jung would remind you that love without boundaries is not love at all. It is surrender without self. It's the kind of love that drains both the giver and the receiver. Because when you lose the line, you cannot truly help anyone. You only drown with them. He once said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Empathy, in its highest form, is like that tree. Its strength depends on its roots, the deep, grounded awareness of self. Without that, your compassion becomes like a branch torn from the trunk. Beautiful, yes, but dying slowly, unable to sustain itself. For many empaths, this moment of realization is painful. You begin to notice the patterns, how you enter relationships like a healer and leave like a patient, how you hold everyone else's secrets but forget your own truth, how your moods swing with the emotions of those around you, as if your soul were an open window and the world's weather keeps changing through it. You may even start to fear your gift. You wonder if empathy is worth it, if feeling this much is a curse disguised as kindness. You pull back, you build walls. But isolation is not the answer either. The goal isn't to close. It's to learn how to stay open without losing yourself. That is what Jung meant when he spoke of differentiation. The ability to say, this is me and that is them. To know that you can feel with someone, but not for them. That your presence is healing, not your absorption. Try to remember, your empathy was never meant to drown you. It was meant to let you touch the world and return whole. Think of yourself as a riverbank, strong, silent, holding the shape of the water without becoming it. The river can flow beside you, wild and full, but you remain steady, grounded, listening. That is empathy with consciousness. That is love with awareness. So the next time you feel another person's storm rising inside you, pause. Breathe. Whisper quietly to yourself, this is their rain, not mine. You can understand it. You can hold space for it, but you don't have to become soaked by it. Because the moment you remember where you end, the water begins to calm. Empathy was never about drowning. It was always about depth. Learning to stand at the edge of someone else's ocean without forgetting the shore beneath your own feet. And as you breathe now, slowly, quietly, you may begin to sense it. The faint return of your own rhythm, your own warmth, your own center. You are not heartless for protecting your energy. You are wise for preserving your ability to love. Let that awareness settle gently in your body. Feel it expand through your chest like sunlight through water, You can care deeply without carrying everything. You can love without losing yourself. And in that stillness, that steady breath between self and other, you rediscover what Jung called wholeness, not perfection, but balance. Breathe in. This is you. Breathe out. That is them. And slowly, the flood begins to recede. The first step toward healing begins in a moment so small you might miss it. A single breath. After so many days of carrying emotions that were never yours, after so many nights of drowning in invisible tides, there comes a quiet realization. You cannot keep living this way. The flood has no mercy, and no one else can pull you out. You have to remember how to breathe on your own. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." For the empath, this means learning to see the subtle moment when another's pain crosses into your body and catching it before it becomes your own. It is awareness as medicine. You begin by noticing. A conversation ends and you feel heavy. You ask yourself softly, what is this feeling? Where did it begin? At first, the answers are blurry. You've lived without boundaries for so long that you've mistaken absorption for love. But then you feel it. That faint distinction, that inner whisper that says, this sadness is not mine. That is the beginning of freedom. Breathe slowly. Inhale, this is me. Exhale, that is them. With each breath, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You begin to sense the quiet architecture of your own being. Solid, grounded, still there beneath the layers of other people's storms. It was never gone, only covered. Jung often described individuation, the process of becoming whole, as a kind of return, a reorientation toward the self. He said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." To look inside is not to close yourself off. It is to remember your own center, the place where your awareness begins and everything else flows around it. You might think this separation will make you cold. It won't. In fact, it's what makes warmth sustainable. Without it, your empathy burns too hot, consuming itself until there's nothing left to give. With it, your compassion becomes calm, a steady flame that illuminates instead of destroys. Start small. The next time you feel someone's sorrow wash over you, pause. Don't fight it. Don't analyze it. Just breathe through it. Notice where it lands in your body, in your chest, your throat, your stomach. Acknowledge it gently and say inwardly, "I see you, but you are not mine to carry." In doing so, you are not rejecting their pain. You are honoring both of you. You are saying, "I can stand beside your storm without stepping into it." This is not detachment, it is integrity. It is empathy with consciousness. Jung wrote in The Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious, "The aim of individuation is nothing less than to divest the self of the false wrappings of the persona and to bring the individual into immediate relation with the self." That is what you are doing here. Unwrapping yourself from the emotions that never belong to you, peeling away layers of identification until your own pulse comes back into rhythm. At first, it feels strange. The stillness. After years of emotional noise, quiet can seem almost frightening, but stay with it. It's not emptiness you're feeling. It's space. Space for your own energy, your own thoughts, your own quiet joys to return. In this stillness, you might begin to notice subtle differences. Someone's anxiety enters a room, and instead of absorbing it, you simply observe. Someone's anger flickers, and you see it without flinching. You are no longer a mirror. You are a witness. And that witnessing is power. You are learning, as Jung did, that the unconscious is not meant to be conquered. It's meant to be known. The emotions that flow through you are not enemies to fight, but messages to interpret. They show you where your boundaries blur, where your compassion needs structure, where your love can mature into something wiser. There's a peace that comes from realizing you don't have to fix everyone. You don't have to hold the world together with your empathy. You can be kind without being consumed. You can be connected without being captured. Take another breath. Inhale. This is me. Exhale. That is them. Each repetition is a thread pulling you back to yourself, weaving a gentle boundary between what you feel and what you carry. It's not a wall. It's a rhythm. The natural pulse of awareness that reminds you where you stand. As your awareness grows steadier, you begin to see others more clearly too. When you no longer confuse their pain with your own, you can truly listen. You can hold space without drowning in it. You become what Jung might have called a conscious vessel. Strong enough to contain emotion, wise enough to release what isn't yours. And the beauty of it is this. When you stay whole, your empathy becomes even deeper, because now it is not a reflex. It is a choice. So let the body rest. Let the breath guide you home. Every inhale draws you closer to your truth. Every exhale releases what does not belong. This is not selfishness. This is sacred self-care, the kind that keeps your spirit alive in a world that demands your softness but rarely protects it. Jung believed that every person must discover a balance between the inner and outer world, the self and the collective. You, as an empath, walk that balance daily, but you are not meant to disappear into others. You are meant to meet them halfway, from a place of presence. If you listen carefully, you can almost hear it, a soft return of harmony within. The chaos quiets. The edges of your being become clear again. And somewhere deep inside, your heart exhales. Because this is what healing truly feels like. Not fireworks, not revelation, but the slow, steady rhythm of breath meeting awareness. Inhale. This is me. Exhale. That is them. And as the breath settles into silence, the river that once overflowed begins to calm. The river finds its bank again. There comes a moment after learning to breathe again, when calmness begins to return. You start to feel balanced, aware of where you end and others begin. The river has found its bank, yet in that stillness, something subtle begins to rise, a quiet sense of pride. You tell yourself, I've learned, I understand, I can help others find their way too. At first, this thought feels warm, even noble. You've walked through pain, through empathy that drowned you, and now you've emerged with insight. You begin to believe that your suffering has given you purpose, that your sensitivity is not only a gift, but a calling. This is where the next shadow appears, gentle at first, disguised as light. Carl Jung called this moment inflation. He wrote in 2 essays on analytical psychology. Inflation is a complete identification with a collective idea, for example, with the role of a savior, prophet, or healer. For the empath, inflation often arrives quietly, wrapped in compassion. You begin to feel responsible for others' pain, convinced you were born to heal it. You carry the weight of everyone's suffering as though it were your duty to fix what the world has broken. And though your intentions are pure, your light begins to expand beyond its natural shape, larger, brighter, until it starts to blind you. You start to feel different from others, not superior exactly, but somehow chosen. People come to you for advice, for comfort, for the energy they can no longer find within themselves. You listen, you guide, and each time they thank you, something inside you glows. It feels holy, as if you are fulfilling a sacred purpose. But light, when ungrounded, becomes glare, and glare blinds even the one who shines it. Slowly, your compassion turns into compulsion. You begin to need to help, to fix, to save. You tell yourself, if I don't do it, who will? You start to feel guilty when others suffer, as though their pain were evidence of your failure. The empathy that once made you open now makes you anxious. The halo of the healer becomes a crown of exhaustion. Jung warned that inflation is the most dangerous state of all because it disguises itself as virtue. You don't see it coming. You believe you are being selfless when in truth you are slipping into identification with an archetype far larger than you. The healer is not a person. It's an ancient symbol, a transpersonal force that belongs to the collective unconscious. No single human can embody it without collapsing under its weight. When the archetype is not recognized as such, Jung wrote, it acts like a god overwhelming the ego with its power. And so, without realizing it, you begin to carry godlike expectations of yourself and of life. You believe you should always understand, always forgive, always hold space. You stop being human in order to stay holy. But holiness without humanity is emptiness. And soon you begin to feel it, that subtle fatigue in your soul. You sit across from someone who is breaking, and though you nod and comfort, something inside you whispers, I can't do this anymore. But you push it down, afraid to disappoint. You think, I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to help. Yet, the more you give, the less you have. Your empathy becomes a kind of hunger. You feed others with your energy, but there's no nourishment left for you. The gift becomes poison. The light you once shared freely now burns at the edges. Still, you keep going because the alternative, admitting you can't fix everything, feels like failure. You forget that even the healer must heal. You forget that the archetype you've merged with is not yours to own, only yours to honor from a distance. There is a story Jung often told about the hero's fall, how every ascent in the psyche must be followed by descent. He wrote, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. The empath's version of this truth is the realization that your light must have roots, humility, boundaries, limits. Without them, you rise too high, too fast, until the air thins and you can no longer breathe. Have you ever noticed how exhaustion can feel almost sacred? How the weight of others' pain can make you feel needed, even important? It's a quiet seduction. The illusion that your suffering has meaning only if it saves someone else. You forget that meaning also lives in rest, in laughter, in letting go. And so, the halo grows brighter, blinding, consuming, holy, until it collapses under its own brilliance. This is not failure. It is the soul's natural correction. Jung called it enantiodromia, the tendency of all things to turn into their opposite. The healer who cannot rest becomes the wounded. The savior who cannot surrender becomes lost. The empath who tries to hold everyone ends up unable to hold themselves. It's here, in this exhaustion, that something beautiful can happen. The realization that you don't need to be the healer. You only need to be human. Breathe. You were never meant to carry everyone. You were meant to see them, and let your seeing be enough. The halo that once felt divine begins to soften. The light dims, not into darkness, but into something gentler, something real. The glow no longer blinds, it simply warms. You start to understand that the greatest healing does not come from fixing, but from presence. Jung believed that true healing happens when two souls meet in honesty, not hierarchy. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. That is the secret the inflated healer forgets. That transformation is mutual. You are not above the pain you tend to. You are shaped by it. And in remembering this, you find your humility again, the quiet kind, the kind that breathes and forgives and releases the need to save. You begin to trust that others have their own paths, their own timing, their own wisdom. The light that once sought to rescue now learns to simply illuminate. As your halo fades to something softer, you feel a strange peace. The burden lifts. You realize that compassion without control is freedom. You can care deeply without losing yourself in the caring. You can offer warmth without burning. And in this stillness, your breath evens. Inhale, I am not the healer. Exhale, I am human. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice rises, not grand, not prophetic, just honest. Even stars rest in the dark. After the brilliance of the halo comes the quiet ache of fatigue. You feel it in your bones, in the heaviness behind your eyes. That sense of having tried too hard, cared too much, reached too far. The light that once made you feel divine now hums too loudly, too bright against your tired heart. Something in you whispers, enough. This is the moment of return. The descent from the illusion of being more than human back into the simple, sacred truth of what you are. Carl Jung wrote in 2 essays on analytical psychology, inflation magnifies the personality beyond its proper limits, causing the individual to lose the measure of himself. To lose the measure of yourself? That is exactly what inflation does. It stretches your empathy until it tears. It convinces you that your worth lies in how much you can save. But wholeness is never found in expansion. It's found in proportion, in remembering your own scale, your own limits. You are not the healer. You are human. At first, those words might sting. They sound like a loss, as if by admitting your humanity, you are surrendering your light. But in truth, this is not defeat. It's liberation. The human scale is not small. It is sacred. It is where real connection happens, where your empathy becomes sustainable, your love becomes real. Jung understood that the ego's greatest temptation is to identify with the archetype, to wear the mask of the healer, the hero, the savior. But every archetype, he said, belongs to the collective unconscious. It's too vast for one person to hold. The archetype, Jung wrote, is a force that cannot be handled without being transformed. When you try to contain it as your personal identity, it consumes you. So now, the work is not to carry the light, but to let it rest beside you. To remember that illumination is something that passes through you, not something you own. You begin to notice small shifts. The exhaustion that once felt shameful now feels honest. The limits you used to deny start to feel like shelter. You realize that boundaries are not barriers. They are breath. They are the pause that keeps the giving kind. It's a gentle fall, this return to scale. Not a crash, but a surrender. You stop trying to glow for everyone and let yourself be dim for a while. You let the silence settle. You stop performing healing and start practicing presence. Jung called this movement back toward balance, the process of enantiodromia, the turning of a thing into its opposite. The inflated healer becomes the humbled human. The savior becomes the student. The light that blinded now softens into something warm, alive, and real. It's strange how peace begins to find you here, not at the height of your power, but in your smallness, in your breathing, in the moment you finally say, I can't fix this. There is relief in that admission, a kind of sacred release, because now you're no longer carrying what was never yours. Take a breath. Inhale, acceptance. Exhale, release. You are no longer the answer. You are the witness, the presence, the listening ear. That is enough. In this humility, something new awakens. You begin to see that helping others doesn't mean saving them. It means walking beside them as equals. Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. That is the essence of true healing. Transformation born from honesty, not superiority. The more you embrace your limits, the more compassion you find, not just for others, but for yourself. You start to see beauty in imperfection, grace in the ordinary, strength in vulnerability. The pressure to be exceptional dissolves, replaced by the peace of simply being enough. You may feel smaller now, but you are lighter, and in that lightness, your empathy breathes again. The world does not need another savior. It needs more whole, awake humans. People who can love without losing themselves, who can care without controlling, who can stand in the dark and say, I don't know, but I'm here. That is the real healer, the one who doesn't pretend to be divine, but who honors the divine in being human. Carl Jung's wisdom was not about transcendence, it was about integration. To hold the light and the dark in one steady heart, to know that both belong, to understand that even the impulse to save is part of the psyche's longing for unity. But you cannot unite what you deny. You must accept your limits as part of your wholeness. You are not endless light. And that is precisely why your light matters. Because it flickers. Because it needs care. Because it is human. So rest now in that truth. Let the light soften around you. Let it be enough to simply exist, to breathe, to feel. Healing begins not in power, but in presence. Inhale, I am not the healer. Exhale, I am human. There's something sacred about that exhale, the release of the impossible roles you've carried, the quiet return to your own body. You realize you can still love deeply without rescuing, still guide gently without control, still shine softly without burning. And as you sit with that awareness, your inner light shifts again. Smaller, yes, but steadier. The glow becomes sustainable, kind, warm. Jung often spoke of the balance between the conscious and the unconscious, between what we know and what we surrender to. This balance, he said, is where wisdom lives. To accept your limitations is to step into that wisdom. You no longer need to be perfect. You no longer need to hold the world together. You only need to be here, awake, aware, alive. And in that simple being, something luminous remains. Not the blinding light of the Savior, but the soft radiance of the human soul, humble enough to rest. Even stars rest in the dark. After you have accepted your humanity, after you have finally laid down the crown of the healer and learned to rest in your limits, something unexpected begins to stir. It is quiet at first, like a faint vibration beneath the calm. Then, one day, without warning, it surfaces. Anger, irritation, a heaviness that feels foreign, almost intrusive. You catch yourself snapping at someone you care about. You wake up anxious for no clear reason. You sense resentment, fear, or even cruelty. Emotions that do not seem to belong to you. And yet, they live in your body as if they've been there for years. This is the strange territory Jung warned about. The place where the line between your psyche and the collective blurs. The place where you start carrying what others cannot. He called it the absorption of shadow material, the unconscious taking in of what others reject in themselves. Jung wrote in Ion, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. For the empath, that shadow does not stay contained within others. It seeps through, finds cracks in your sensitivity, and anchors itself in your own unconscious. And so, you begin to feel what others cannot admit they feel. Their rage, their jealousy, their fear of not being enough. You absorb it without knowing, because your openness, your empathy, acts like a magnet for what others disown. It doesn't happen because you choose it. It happens because you listen too deeply. Jung believed that the shadow seeks expression, that it will find a vessel one way or another. If a person refuses to confront their darker instincts, those instincts look for someone else to carry them. And the empath, with their open heart and permeable boundaries, becomes the perfect vessel. You might have noticed it. After spending time with someone, your mood shifts. You were peaceful before. Now you feel restless, irritated, maybe even angry. You start to replay their words in your mind. But what's really happening is something deeper, a quiet, psychic exchange. They have unconsciously handed you a piece of their darkness, and your body has taken it in as if it were your own. Jung wrote, "The possession of the shadow is the root cause of almost all emotional disturbances. The empath's suffering in many ways comes from this, carrying other people's unacknowledged emotions until they become indistinguishable from their own. Imagine two rivers meeting. The waters mix, swirl, lose their color. For a while, you cannot tell which current belongs to which source. That is what happens inside the empath when shadow material crosses over. You begin to notice behaviors that surprise you. You feel impulses you can't explain. Maybe you find yourself avoiding someone without understanding why. Or perhaps you begin to think unkind thoughts about someone you've always loved. The emotions feel alien, but also intimate, because they are now living through you. This is not possession in the mystical sense. It's empathy turned unconscious, the energetic merging of unspoken truths. For example, someone represses their anger. They smile, they pretend to be calm, but the rage is still there, alive in the unconscious. When you stand beside them, your sensitivity picks up the vibration of that anger. You internalize it, and soon you're the one who feels furious, restless, defensive, without knowing why. It's as if the universe has whispered, You will hold this for now. But the weight is not meant to stay with you. And here is the subtle danger. The more unaware you are, the more you absorb. The more you identify with being the understanding one, the more shadow content finds its way in. You become the emotional landfill of your relationships, quietly collecting the unowned darkness of everyone around you. And yet, even in this strange heaviness, there is meaning. Jung taught that the shadow is not evil. It is the part of us that carries energy, instinct, and potential, all the vitality that the conscious mind has rejected. To work with it is not to cleanse yourself, but to awaken. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." So now, instead of resisting these strange emotions, you begin to observe them. You say quietly to yourself, "This anger, whose is it? What is it trying to show me?" You do not suppress it. You do not act on it. You simply watch, breathe, and let it speak. Sometimes it whispers truths you didn't expect. It reveals that the anger you carry for others mirrors a smaller, forgotten anger within yourself, the one you've denied for years. It shows that what you absorb and what you avoid are often reflections of the same wound. In that moment, something begins to change. Awareness separates what was once fused. You no longer drown in emotion. You begin to float above it. But the process is not gentle at first. It feels like a storm beneath the surface. Waves moving in slow motion, colliding, breaking, settling again. The current of other people's pain moves through you, but this time, you do not mistake it for your own. You breathe through it. You stay grounded. Jung saw this as part of individuation, the expansion of consciousness through the integration of what was previously unconscious. You cannot live among humans without encountering the shadows, but you can learn not to be consumed by them. And so, you start to practice a kind of inner hygiene, not moral, but psychological. You check in with yourself at the end of each day. You notice whose energy you have picked up, what feelings are living in your body. You name them, thank them, release them. You remind yourself, I am not the container, I am the observer. This awareness transforms absorption into alchemy. What once drained you now deepens you. You see more, understand more, but carry less. The anger that once felt foreign becomes a teacher, showing you where compassion ends and self-preservation begins. And as you breathe, the rhythm returns. Slow, steady, tidal. The strange anger softens, dissolves back into the collective from which it came. You feel lighter, clearer. The emotional fog begins to lift, and somewhere deep inside, a quiet truth surfaces. The same one Jung discovered through decades of walking among shadows. You were never meant to carry the darkness of others. You were meant to recognize it, and in doing so, free both them and yourself. There comes a point when awareness alone is no longer enough. You've named the strange anger, traced its origin, and realized that much of what you feel does not belong to you. You've watched these emotions move through your body like a tide, powerful, real, but not truly yours. Now, you are ready for something deeper, the act of release. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." You have begun to make it conscious, to see how other people's shadows have lived quietly inside you. But awareness, while vital, must be followed by choice. And that choice is this: to give back what is not yours to carry. So breathe. Let your body soften into stillness, and in your mind, begin to see it, the shadow. It does not look frightening. It's not a monster or a storm. It's simply a shape, dark, dense, and heavy, like smoke that has lingered too long in your lungs. You can feel it inside you, in your chest, your shoulders, your breath. You don't fight it. You don't curse it. You just see it for what it is: borrowed pain. Now, imagine holding it gently in your hands. No judgment, no resistance, just acknowledgement. This pain is not yours. Say it softly to yourself. This pain is not mine. This anger is not mine. This fear does not belong to me. As you breathe out, picture yourself handing it back, not to punish, not to reject, but to return it to its rightful source, like a letter that was delivered to the wrong address. The air feels lighter as you do this. The boundaries between you and the world begin to settle again. You are no longer the vessel. You are the riverbank. Still, grounded, letting the water pass without losing form. Jung believed that consciousness is a light, not the blinding kind, but the soft kind that reveals. In Psychology and Alchemy, he wrote, "There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection." To return the shadow is not to deny darkness. It's to understand that darkness must belong where it was born. Your empathy does not require you to keep it. True compassion includes letting others carry their own lessons. So you breathe again, slowly, deeply, with intention. Inhale, recognition. Exhale, release. Each exhale is a gesture of trust. Trust that the world can handle its own weight, that others have the capacity to face what is theirs. You no longer need to protect everyone from their own shadow. You might feel a flicker of guilt at first. Empaths often do. That small voice inside says, "If I don't hold it, who will?" But another, wiser voice answers, "Not you, not anymore." Because love is not about carrying someone's darkness. It's about seeing them clearly in it and believing they are strong enough to find their own light. As you visualize giving the weight back, imagine the person or the memory to whom it belongs. You don't need to speak to them aloud. You don't even need to know their name. In your heart, say simply, "I release you to your own path. May you learn what you need to learn. May I now rest." You are not sending harm. You are restoring balance. Jung often reminded us that psychic health depends on equilibrium, the flow between light and dark, self and other, giving and letting go. To return the weight is to return to yourself. Notice what happens in your body as you do this. The tightness in your chest begins to loosen. The heaviness behind your eyes lifts. The emotion that once felt like quicksand now feels like wind. Something that moves through you, not something you drown in. You may even feel an odd stillness, a sense of clarity that you haven't felt in years. That's what it feels like to be whole again. Not empty, whole. Jung wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." Integration does not mean keeping everything. It means recognizing what is yours to hold and what is not, and trusting that letting go is also part of healing. So now, you begin to walk back toward yourself. You reclaim your energy, your thoughts, your emotions. You draw back the pieces of your soul that were scattered through other people's suffering. And with every step, you feel lighter. It's as if the world itself shifts color. The air less dense, the light softer, the silence less lonely. What once felt like burden now feels like clarity. The line between you and others once blurred, becomes gentle but distinct. Not a wall, but a horizon. In this space, you rediscover peace. Not the peace of avoidance, but the peace of ownership, knowing that your heart belongs fully to you again. You can still love, still care, still listen, but now you do so from a place of strength, not depletion. Take one more slow breath. Inhale, I honor what I feel. Exhale, I return what is not mine. And now, as you exhale, imagine the weight dissolving, turning into light mist, then into air, rising higher until it disappears into the sky. You do not need to know where it goes. You only need to feel the space it leaves behind. That space is sacred. It is where your own soul breathes again. As you sit in that quiet, you might begin to feel it, a faint glow, soft and steady, like light breaking through morning fog. It touches your skin, your breath, your mind. The pain has gone home. What remains is clarity. You realize that empathy, when conscious, is not a wound. It's a bridge. It connects without consuming. It allows you to witness pain without drowning in it. It is strength, not sacrifice. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Returning the weight is part of that privilege. It is how you stop being an echo of others and start being the voice of your own soul. So breathe one last time. Feel your own pulse, steady, alive, free. You are no longer holding what doesn't belong to you. You're simply being, light, present, whole. And as the breath fades, you can almost see it, that gentle shimmer, the quiet light behind the fog. The shadow has gone. The air is clear. The river of your empathy flows again, calm, defined, and finally your own. After you have returned the weight that was never yours, something beautiful happens. The silence inside you deepens. The air feels lighter. For the first time in a long while, you can hear your own heartbeat without the echo of someone else's pain. You begin to feel a kind of peace, fragile but real. Yet, as this quiet settles, another realization arises, one that cuts even deeper. You begin to see how much of your life has been lived through others. It's subtle at first. You notice it in how your joy depends on their smiles, how your calm depends on their moods, how your worth feels tied to whether they are okay. You think of their stories before you think of your own. Their victories feel like yours. Their failures wound you as if you lived them yourself. Carl Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And perhaps that is why so many empaths, so many gentle souls, spend their lives reflecting instead of living. Because facing your own life, your own desires, fears, and limits can feel far more frightening than carrying someone else's. You've spent years standing in front of mirrors, thousands of them. Every person you've ever loved became a reflection, and through them, you try to understand yourself. But the mirrors are endless. You look into one and see tenderness, another and see chaos, another and see need. You start to forget which reflection is you. In this mirror life, you learn to adapt. You mirror the laughter, the sadness, the energy around you. You say, "I'm fine," when someone needs you to be. You shape yourself into what will bring peace, comfort, or love. And people love you for it. You are the calm in their storm, the listener, the anchor. But over time, something quiet inside begins to ache. The part of you that has been watching from behind the glass. This is the empath's hidden tragedy. To be loved for what you reflect, not for what you are. Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world. He said, the persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society. Fittingly enough, a kind of mask designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. For the empath, this mask is made of mirrors. It's built from sensitivity and care, polished through years of adaptation. You learn to become what others need, not what you are. And eventually, you mistake the reflection for reality. You tell yourself, this is who I am, the caretaker, the understanding one, the soft place to land. And maybe that's partly true, but it's not the whole truth. Beneath that reflection is someone unseen, the one who has opinions, dreams, anger, and hunger, the one who wants to live her own story, not just play a role in someone else's. The more you forget that, the more you disappear. You start to realize how easily you have merged, how much of your life has been lived through other people's eyes. You celebrate their milestones, but delay your own. You soothe their fears while burying your own restlessness. You call it empathy, but sometimes it's avoidance, a way to escape yourself. And here's the truth Jung would remind you of. There can be no transforming of darkness into light and of apathy into movement without emotion. To reclaim your life, you must feel your own feelings again. So, you stand before those mirrors, all of them stretching endlessly. The faces, the stories, the expectations. You look closer. You start to see the thin cracks forming in the glass. The reflections flicker. And in one of them, faintly, you see something unfamiliar. A person not shaped by others' needs, not softened by the shadows. It's you. You almost don't recognize yourself. Your voice sounds quieter, uncertain. You've spent so long translating everyone else's emotions that you've forgotten the texture of your own. But there it is, your essence waiting patiently behind the reflection. This realization does not come with a burst of confidence or a heroic declaration. It comes with stillness, with a slow, steady recognition that your life cannot be lived through others. Their joy is theirs to feel. Their pain is theirs to heal. And your existence, your worth, does not depend on either. You breathe and something shifts. Inhale, this is my life. Exhale, this is not my story to live. Jung would call this the beginning of individuation, the journey toward becoming who you truly are, not who the world has mirrored back to you. It's not about separation in the cold sense, but about rediscovering your own gravity. You are not meant to orbit endlessly around other people's suns. You are your own light. Still, this realization carries grief. You might mourn the identity that empathy gave you, the one built on being indispensable, needed, adored. You might feel lonely without the mirrors. You might even fear the silence that follows when you stop reflecting others and start listening to yourself. But in that silence, something extraordinary begins. You start to hear the voice that has been whispering beneath all the noise. It doesn't demand, it doesn't apologize. It simply says, I am here. And that's enough. You no longer need to be everything for everyone. You no longer need to find meaning through their lives. You begin to trust that your own life, with all its uncertainty, its quiet, its slow unfolding, is enough to fill the space you once tried to fill with others. This is what Jung meant when he said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. to live your own life, not as a reflection, but as an original. So you start small. You listen to your own thoughts without judging them. You feel your own emotions without comparing them. You ask yourself softly, what do I want? A question that feels both foreign and sacred. At first, there's no answer, just quiet. But stay with it. Beneath that quiet, your life is waiting, the one that belongs only to you. And as you stand before those countless mirrors, one by one, they begin to fade. The faces dissolve, the reflections soften, until all that remains is a single clear image. You breathing, alive, whole. The mirror life begins to break apart, and in its place, something real begins to grow. Your own reflection, not borrowed, not distorted, not defined by anyone else, finally returns your gaze. And for the first time, you recognize yourself. The mirrors have faded now. The faces you once reflected have softened into memory. Kind, familiar, but no longer consuming. The silence that follows feels vast, almost unreal. For a moment, you do not know what to do with it. The space inside you is both freeing and frightening, like stepping into a room where no one has spoken your name yet. It is here that your journey turns inward again. Not toward others this time, but toward the part of you that has been waiting quietly for years. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." This is that awakening, not loud or sudden, but slow, like dawn light returning to a quiet valley. You begin to ask yourself a question you have avoided for most of your life. What do I want? For me? It feels almost wrong at first, selfish even, to turn that question inward. You are so used to thinking in terms of them, the feelings, the comfort, the needs, that focusing on yourself feels unnatural. But sit with it. Let the question linger, like a breath suspended in still air. What do I want for me? You might not know the answer yet. That's all right. This isn't about urgency or achievement. This is about remembering. For too long, you have been the witness of other people's stories. Now, you are being invited to write your own. The process begins gently. You start to notice what brings you peace, what makes you feel alive. A quiet morning alone, a walk without conversation, a creative spark that needs no validation. The small, authentic joys that were once drowned out by the noise of other lives. Jung believed that the soul communicates through symbols, dreams, and feelings. Subtle languages that reveal what words cannot. So when the mind doesn't know what it wants, the heart still whispers. You may feel drawn to certain colors, sounds, or images without knowing why. Follow them. They are the breadcrumbs of your individuality. This is the stage Jung called individuation, the slow, sacred process of becoming who you truly are, beyond roles, beyond masks. It is not about rejecting others, but about returning home to yourself. As you walk this path, you begin to see how deeply you've been shaped by the lives around you. Parents, lovers, friends, every expectation, every emotional inheritance has left fingerprints on your soul. You were taught who to be before you ever had a chance to choose. But now, standing in this quiet light, you are free to question it. You can ask, is this truly mine? Or did I inherit this dream, this fear, this definition of love? In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung wrote, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." And in those words lies your permission to choose again, to begin again, to become again. You start by noticing the simplest things. What do you crave when no one is watching? What kind of silence feels comforting instead of lonely? What kind of life would you build if you no longer needed to be everything for everyone? The answers come slowly, like seeds breaking through soil. You nurture them not with pressure, but with patience. You breathe, you rest, you allow. Inhale, I am becoming. Exhale, I no longer need to please. You realize that this isn't about reinventing yourself. It's about remembering the self that existed before the mirrors. The child who felt without apology, who dreamed without permission, who simply was. There will be moments when the old patterns return. The urge to check how others feel before you act. The reflex to prioritize their peace over your truth. When that happens, smile gently at yourself. These patterns were once survival. You do not need to punish them. You only need to outgrow them. In the undiscovered self, Jung reminded us that individuality is not isolation. In order to be different, we must first be ourselves. To write your own chapter does not mean you stop loving others. It means your love no longer depends on disappearing. Now, as the music inside you softens and brightens, imagine a blank page opening before you. The pen is in your hand. For years, it has been guided by other voices, their needs, their approval, their stories. But tonight, you write your own line. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be honest. You begin to write with humility, with wonder. This is my story. This is where I begin. You may find that your story is quiet, contemplative, simple, or that it burns with energy you've never expressed before. Whatever form it takes, it's yours. You are not living vicariously anymore. You are living consciously, and consciousness is freedom. Every decision you make now, no matter how small, becomes an act of reclamation. Choosing your own rest, saying no when it costs your peace, saying yes to what makes you feel whole. Step by step, choice by choice, your life begins to feel like yours again. There's a calm in that realization, the kind of peace that doesn't come from validation, but from authenticity. You no longer need to mirror anyone. You no longer need to rescue. You no longer need to be the soft reflection of someone else's light. You are enough as you are. So breathe deeply. Inhale, this is my chapter. Exhale, I am home in myself. You can feel the air shifting, like sunlight dissolving fog. The tension leaves your shoulders, replaced by something quieter. A still joy, like the first light after a long storm. And if you listen closely, beneath all the years of echoes and empathy, you can hear it. That soft voice within you, calm and patient. It has never left. It has simply been waiting for you to return. The self you abandoned waits patiently in silence. There is a quiet sweetness that follows self-recognition. The moment you begin writing your own chapter, reclaiming what was lost. But soon, another truth emerges from the edges of awareness, soft but undeniable. Even as you return to yourself, a mask still clings to your face. It is the same mask that once protected you, the same one that helped you survive in rooms where being too emotional, too intuitive, or too honest was dangerous. You wore it well. The calm one, the kind one, the endlessly understanding one. For years, it served you. But now, as you breathe deeper into your own life, it begins to feel heavy. Carl Jung called this mask the persona. In 2 essays on analytical psychology, he wrote, "The persona is a kind of mask designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. The empath's persona is especially convincing, gentle, wise, endlessly patient. It radiates peace on the surface, even when a storm brews within. You've been praised for it your whole life. You're such a good listener. You're so understanding. You're always so calm. Compliments, yes, but also chains. Because over time, the performance becomes indistinguishable from the person. So tonight, let's ask softly, how heavy is your smile tonight? How many times have you smiled to keep the peace when what you really wanted was to scream or cry or simply be silent? How often have you played the role of the good one, the one who absorbs tension, who forgives too easily, who carries the emotional labor for everyone else, because that role keeps the world around you stable? You see, the empath's greatest strength, sensitivity, easily turns into captivity when it fuses with the need to be good. The persona becomes what Jung described as a social fiction, a version of yourself that society prefers over the truth. And though it earns love, it suffocates authenticity. Imagine walking through life wearing a beautiful glass mask. People see their reflection in it, not you. They tell you how radiant you look, how perfect, how unshakably kind. But behind the glass, your skin cannot breathe. Every emotion that doesn't fit the image, anger, jealousy, exhaustion, has nowhere to go. It gathers quietly beneath the surface until the pressure becomes unbearable. That's what the empath feels in this polite prison, a quiet, aching exhaustion from maintaining an identity that never rests. In the relations between the ego and the unconscious, Jung warned, we cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning. The empath's program to please, to soothe, to understand was necessary once. But there comes a time when it no longer fits. The soul begins to outgrow its mask. And when that happens, the body tells the truth. You feel it as tension in the shoulders that will not ease, as sleepless nights filled with invisible weight, as the strange guilt that arises when you try to rest. The persona resists silence. It needs performance to feel alive. Yet the deeper you journey inward, the more that performance begins to fracture. You start noticing the moments when your kindness feels forced. The instant you smile and feel a tiny, sharp resistance inside, a whisper that says, I don't mean this. The persona demands that you continue, that you maintain the illusion, because to stop would risk disappointing someone. But beneath that fear lies the truth. You are exhausted from being good, and it is not that you wish to be cruel, only that you wish to be real. To an empath, the persona often fuses with identity so completely that removing it feels like self-destruction. Who am I without being helpful? Who am I without being understanding? Who am I if I am not endlessly kind? These questions sting because they reveal a forgotten truth, that being good is not the same as being whole. Jung often spoke of the danger of over-identifying with any single aspect of ourselves. When the persona dominates, everything else, anger, desire, independence, boundaries, gets buried in the unconscious. And whatever is buried does not disappear. It waits. It leaks out in quiet ways The polite smile that hides resentment, the gentle tone that conceals frustration, the fatigue that feels like a fog. There's a tenderness in realizing this. You begin to see that your persona was never a lie. It was simply incomplete. It was your way of being loved before you knew that love could exist without performance. And so, slowly, gently, you begin to unlearn the habit of perfection. You allow yourself to pause before answering, to say no without apology, to let silence stretch where you once filled it with comfort. Each small act feels like rebellion, but also like breathing for the first time. You might feel a strange sadness as you do this. Let it come. The persona has been your armor for so long. Letting it soften is both liberation and loss. But Jung reminds us, one doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To remove the mask is to face the shadow beneath it, the parts of you that are tired, angry, selfish, or simply human. And here's the secret. Once you allow those parts to exist, the mask no longer imprisons you. It becomes optional, something you can wear when needed, but never mistake for your face. So tonight, as the music softens and the air grows still, picture yourself holding that mask in your hands. It's smooth, beautiful, and familiar. You thank it for protecting you. You acknowledge that it helped you survive. But now, gently, you set it down. Breathe. Feel your own skin against the cool air. Feel how light your face becomes without the weight of pretending. Your empathy is still here, quiet, radiant, alive, but it no longer needs to hide behind a smile. You are not the persona. You are the soul behind it. Real, imperfect, breathing. And for the first time, that is enough. The moment you set the mask down, something subtle shifts inside you. The air tastes different, a little colder, but also cleaner. There's an unfamiliar nakedness to your face, to your being. For so long, the persona shielded you from judgment, rejection, and even your own complexity. Without it, you feel exposed, but also, finally, honest. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That privilege begins here, not in perfection, but in the first trembling cracks of authenticity. You look at the mask resting beside you, and it is still beautiful, still tempting. It whispers, "Put me back on. It's safer that way." And maybe, for a moment, you do. But this time, you notice something new. A faint line running across the surface. A crack. It's not from carelessness, it's from truth. Each time you allow yourself to say what you really feel, each time you express a need or admit exhaustion, the mask fractures a little more. It does not shatter violently. It softens, hairline fissures spreading like rivers through porcelain. You are learning to breathe again. Breathe in, courage. Breathe out, honesty. There is a sacred defiance in choosing honesty after years of performing goodness. For empaths, that honesty can feel almost cruel, as if saying no, setting limits, or showing anger would betray the gentle image they've always maintained. But in truth, it is the opposite. Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires us to integrate every part of ourselves, even those we've hidden. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, he wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. That darkness is not evil. It is your anger, your frustration, your desire, your hunger for rest. It is everything you've suppressed to keep the mask intact. So now, the practice is simple, though never easy. Let yourself breathe out what you've been holding in. When you feel the weight of resentment pressing in your chest, don't swallow it, name it. When you feel the ache of loneliness, don't disguise it with compassion. Let it be seen. When you feel the sharp edge of anger rising, do not shame it into silence. Let it speak. Anger, in its conscious form, is not destruction. It is boundary. It's life reminding you that something inside you deserves protection. You can show what is not perfect and still be loved. Say that again. Still be loved. It's a quiet revelation, one that the mask always denied you. Because the mask taught that love must be earned through composure, patience, and perpetual selflessness. But true love, from others and from yourself, does not bloom through performance. It grows through truth. Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone who has always known you as calm and accommodating. For years, you have nodded, smiled, softened every edge. Tonight, your voice trembles and you say, "I'm tired." Not dramatically, simply, truthfully. There's a pause. The silence feels heavy, but instead of disappointment, you notice something unexpected. Their face softens too. The connection deepens, the mask cracks, and light seeps through both of you. That is what happens when truth enters the room. The cracks are not a sign of failure. They're openings, small passages through which your real self breathes into the world. The empath's greatest fear has always been rejection. That if the mask breaks, no one will stay. But Jung understood this paradox deeply. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Because to accept yourself means risking that not everyone will. Yet it also means discovering the ones who can. Each time you dare to be honest, you give the world a chance to meet the real you. Not the polished reflection, but the full, imperfect being behind it. And that is how authentic relationships form. Not through admiration, but through mutual vulnerability. Now, let's pause. Feel your breath move through you. Notice the tension in your shoulders begin to loosen. The act of being real is not violent. It is tender. It is a slow undoing. Breathe in, I am allowed to be human. Breathe out, I no longer need to perform peace. In Jungian terms, this moment represents the integration of opposites, the merging of your light and shadow, the visible and the hidden. You are no longer split between what you show and what you suppress. You are becoming one. And as that integration begins, the world itself seems to shift. The people who only loved your mask may fall away quietly, without blame. Others will step closer, those who see not your performance, but your presence. You will feel fewer expectations, fewer silent obligations. In their place, you will feel air, clean, open, alive. The empath who once drowned in others' emotions begins to float again, not detached, but free. And yes, the process still hurts. Cracks are not painless. Sometimes you'll feel the sharp edges of vulnerability cutting against old fear. Sometimes you'll miss the ease of pretending. But then you'll remember, pretending is not peace. Carl Jung once said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There's no recipe for living that suits all cases. The persona was a shoe too tight for your soul. The cracks are how it begins to loosen. So tonight, you practice a small act of rebellion. You stop smiling when you do not feel like it. You rest when your body asks for it. You speak one truth you used to swallow. You let one tear fall without apologizing for it. And when you do, you may notice something strange. The light doesn't fade. It softens, It bends through the cracks like sunlight through broken glass, scattering warmth across everything you thought was too flawed to love. The mask is breaking, yes, but what emerges beneath it is not ruin, it is radiance. You can feel it, your real face breathing for the first time. Inhale, truth. Exhale, release. The mask is no longer your home. You have outgrown it, and as you sit here, unguarded but whole, you realize the paradox at the heart of Jung's wisdom. The moment you stop being who the world expects, you become who you were meant to be. The mask has cracked, and through it, your light returns, not the blinding light of perfection, but the soft human glow that was always yours. The light streaming through the cracks has changed everything. It's softer now, not the kind of light that blinds, but the kind that reveals. For a long time, you feared this moment, the one where the mask would break and something raw, unknown would emerge. But now that it has, the silence feels sacred. There's no applause, no echo of validation, only breath, presence, and a quiet knowing that the work is not yet done. Because beneath the layers of masks and mirrors, something waits. It has been waiting for years. For your courage to look inward, for your willingness to meet what you once feared most, your own shadow. Carl Jung called the shadow the thing a person has no wish to be. He also said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And so, here you are, standing face to face with what has always lived in the corners of your light. It doesn't appear as a monster. It arrives as something strangely familiar, like an old friend you've avoided for too long. The shadow knows your story. It remembers the anger you swallowed, the envy you denied, the selfishness you disowned, the pain you buried under compassion. It has carried all that for you, quietly, faithfully. When you first see it, there's fear. You recoil a little. The instinct to turn away is strong. You've spent so much of your life trying to be good, kind, and composed that to meet this darker part feels like betrayal. But stay. Don't turn away. The shadow is not here to harm you. It's here to complete you. Sit with it. Let its presence settle. Notice how, even in its darkness, there's something profoundly human about it. Something tender. Every harsh impulse, every selfish desire, every ugly thought it carries was once born from a wound. This is what Jung meant when he said, there is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. The darkness within you is not evil, it's unintegrated. It's the part that wasn't allowed to exist when you decided to become the good one. For the empath, this realization can feel especially disorienting. You've built your identity on light, on gentleness, on compassion, on care. To admit that within you lives envy, irritation, even cruelty seems to violate everything you stand for. But Jung's wisdom offers a different truth. Wholeness is not found in being only light, but in learning to carry both. So breathe. Inhale, acknowledgement. Exhale, acceptance. Let your mind drift for a moment. Imagine sitting in a dim room, a single candle flickering before you. Around it, shadows dance along the walls. Notice how the light doesn't fight them. It creates them. The brighter the flame, the deeper the shadows stretch. They are not enemies. They are proof of the light's existence. The same is true for you. Your anger, when seen clearly, becomes passion, the drive to defend what matters. Your selfishness, when understood, becomes self-respect, the courage to claim space. Your envy, when faced, becomes desire, the map to what your soul truly longs for. To deny these parts is to remain half alive. To welcome them is to return to your full humanity. There's a moment, quiet but powerful, when you stop labeling your emotions as good or bad. You start to see them as information, messengers of the unconscious, each carrying truth. The anger says, I've been overgiving. The jealousy says, I've been denying my own dreams. The fear says, I need to feel safe. This is the beginning of shadow integration, not exorcism, but conversation. Jung once said, one doesn't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To make the darkness conscious means to hold it in your awareness without judgment. It's to say, yes, I can be jealous. Yes, I can be controlling. Yes, I can be cruel. And then to whisper, and I am still worthy of love. That whisper changes everything. Because the moment you stop denying your shadow, it stops acting out unconsciously. You no longer project it onto others, no longer blame or moralize. The parts you use to condemn in others, arrogance, manipulation, selfishness, begin to reveal their mirrored forms within you. Instead of disgust, you feel understanding. Instead of judgment, compassion. And that compassion isn't weakness, it's clarity. There is a deep peace in realizing that the darkness you feared in others is the same darkness that lives in you. You begin to soften toward humanity itself. The world feels less divided, less chaotic. Everyone you meet becomes a reflection of some forgotten part of yourself. But before this peace, there is trembling. Integration begins with honesty, and honesty can feel like standing naked in a storm. You might cry. You might feel shame. You might want to run. That's all right. Stay anyway. Let the storm wash through. Let the fear rise and fall like a tide. You are not being punished. You are being reclaimed. The parts you called too much, too selfish, too dark, they are knocking on the door of consciousness, asking to come home. Each one says, I am you. In psychology and alchemy, Jung described this process as the union of opposites. The light and dark, the conscious and unconscious, the sacred and the ordinary, all must coexist. That union is what gives birth to wholeness. Now imagine a shadow sitting beside you, no longer threatening but calm, watching you breathe. It nods, as if it has been waiting for this moment all along. You realize you have never been divided after all, only unacknowledged. So you rest, you breathe, you let the fear soften into warmth. The darkness is no longer something to escape. It's part of your landscape now, the soil from which your empathy, creativity, and love have always grown. It isn't the end of the journey, it's the ground beneath it. Inhale, I accept my shadow. Exhale, I am whole. The light dims, the air stills. You can feel your heartbeat slow, steady, alive. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet truth rises, the kind that doesn't need words. You were never meant to be only light. You were meant to be everything, the flame and the shadow it casts. And in that understanding, the fear dissolves. You meet your darkness. And instead of recoiling, you nod in recognition. The old friend has come home. The darkness has settled now, not as an enemy, but as a quiet companion sitting beside the light. There is no more resistance, no more struggle, only the rhythm of breath moving through you, gentle and complete. Something inside has shifted. The chaos that once felt unbearable has softened into a strange serenity. The shadow, once feared, has found its place. The light, once fragile, now feels steady. It's as if the two have been waiting all along to recognize each other. Two halves of the same truth, finally joined in silence. Carl Jung once said, "There is no light without shadow and no psychic wholeness without imperfection." It's a sentence that feels simple until you live it. To truly understand it, you must walk through your own contradictions. To see that healing isn't about becoming pure, but about becoming whole. The light does not destroy the dark, it illuminates it. And as that realization settles in, you feel something unexpected. Peace. Not the fleeting kind that depends on quiet rooms or kind words, but the kind that comes from knowing yourself completely. The kind that whispers, "You were never broken." Every moment of anger, every wound, every mistake, all of it was a necessary part of this unfolding. You were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be human. Breathe that in. Inhale, "I am whole." Exhale, "I am enough." You can almost feel the air lighten around you, like the first hint of dawn after a long night. The sky inside your mind begins to brighten. The sharp edges of guilt, shame, and self-judgment begin to dissolve, replaced by something tender. Self-compassion. Wholeness, Jung would remind us, is not perfection. It is inclusion. It is the gentle act of welcoming every part of yourself home. The light, the dark, the broken, the brave, all of it belongs. You are no longer at war with yourself. Now, the empathy that once drained you begins to heal you. The sensitivity that once overwhelmed you becomes your gift again. The anger you once feared becomes strength. The sadness you used to hide becomes wisdom. The parts of you that once fought each other are finally sitting together at the same table. Not to debate, but to rest. That's what shadow integration really means. Not conquest, but reunion. You begin to see that life itself mirrors this pattern. Every day is born from darkness. Every dawn comes after night. The world does not apologize for its contrasts. It thrives because of them. The stars need the void to shine. The ocean needs depth to move. Even the heart needs both expansion and contraction to keep beating. And so do you. You are both light and dark. You are both softness and strength. You are both wound and healer. You are everything you were meant to be. Carl Jung's philosophy has always pointed to this balance, the middle path between opposites. He called it the self, the archetype of wholeness, the center that holds everything together. It is not something you find outside yourself. It is the place you return to when you stop running. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine your inner world now, not divided, not chaotic, but vast. A horizon stretching endlessly where light and shadow meet and blend. This is your true home. You are no longer chasing peace. You are peace. And with that realization comes a deep humility. You begin to understand your smallness, not as weakness, but as belonging. You are part of a greater whole, the world, the cosmos, the quiet intelligence that moves through everything. You are both the wave and the ocean, both the flicker and the flame. Jung once wrote, "The gold is in the dark." Now you see what he meant. Every descent you've endured, every emotional collapse, every time you thought you lost yourself, that was the gold being forged. You had to enter the dark to find your light. You had to lose yourself to return whole. So now, let go. Let the tension fall from your shoulders. Let your thoughts drift like leaves on water. There is nothing more to fix, nothing more to earn. The work is done for now. You've walked through every layer, the empathy that burned you, the illusions that blinded you, the shadows that haunted you. And still, you stand, not polished, not perfect, but alive. You were never broken. You were just learning where you end and the world begins. Pause there. Let those words echo softly in your chest. Every boundary you've reclaimed, every truth you've faced, every piece of darkness you've welcomed, all of it has led you here, to this moment of stillness, to this moment of return. You can rest now. The air feels lighter. The light is softer. Even your shadow feels calm. In this gentle calm, you sense the quiet rhythm of life itself. Expansion and release, inhale and exhale, day and night. The same breath that moves through the universe moves through you. You are part of something vast, eternal, and kind. There is no separation anymore, not between you and your darkness, not between you and the world. There is only unity. And in that unity, you finally understand what Jung devoted his life to teaching. That healing is not transcendence, but integration. It's not about escaping the human condition, but embracing it fully, with grace, with honesty, with compassion. So let your body relax now. Let the warmth of that understanding fill you. The light within you has grown quiet, not gone, just peaceful. Inhale, I am whole. Exhale, I am home. The world feels far away now, softened by stillness. You can hear the faint hum of your own being, steady, calm, complete. Let that hum carry you into rest. And as you drift, remember, you were never broken. You were only learning the shape of your own soul. When the story comes to rest, there is no final revelation, only stillness. The empath who once drowned in emotion, who wore masks of light to hide the weight of shadow, now sits quietly beneath an open sky within. The light and the dark no longer fight. They breathe together. Carl Jung once said, "The gold is in the dark." And perhaps that is what you found, not perfection, but wholeness. Not certainty, but peace in uncertainty. You are both the wound and the wisdom that grew from it, both the storm and the calm that follows. The world feels softer now. The air hums with something ancient and kind. You can feel it, the quiet rhythm of your own being, steady like waves that no longer need to crash. The empathy that once burned you has turned into warmth, gentle enough to hold yourself and others without losing who you are. Nothing more to fix, nothing more to understand, only to be. Let your body sink into the comfort of this moment. Let your thoughts drift like stars fading into dawn. The shadow is no longer behind you. It moves with you, beside you, part of your light. You were never broken. You were simply becoming. Now take a slow breath. Let it carry you home. And as the world grows quiet around you, let everything fade into peace. Good night.